It is my pleasure to introduce Diane Vasaturo, a clinical social worker with TLC, who will be talking to us today about the spiritual aspects of living a balanced life.
I would like to start comparing and contrasting religion and spirituality before I actually get into the spiritual aspects. Many people might think spirituality and religion are one and the same. Not necessarily the case. Religion is more of a specific set of organized beliefs and practices. Spirituality is more of an individual practice, has to do with a sense of peace, purpose, and it also relates to the process of developing beliefs around the meaning of life. You're going to see that theme or hear that theme as I go through the talk, and I do the definitions, the formal definitions, and also talk about different notable people who have used their spiritual aspects in their lives. So religion's more organized, uses more symbols, typically traditions, ceremony, where spirituality focuses more on the mind, the body, and the spirit connection. In spirituality, the questions are, where do I personally find meaning, connection, and value? In religion, it's more what's true and what is right. Beliefs, comfort, and reflection are found in both religion and spirituality, and they affect the way we think, feel, and behave. I looked up some definitions of spirituality. One was, it's the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. The shift in priorities allows us to embrace our spirituality in a more profound way. Wikipedia says that spirituality can be defined generally as an individual's search for intimate or sacred meaning or purpose in life. Christina Pukowski, a doctor and director of George Washington Institute for Spirituality and Health, contends that spirituality is the aspect of humanity that refers to the way we seek and express meaning and the purpose and the way we experience connectedness to the moment, to self, to others, to nature, and to the sacred or to God. Authors of the book, The Spiritual Brain, says that spirituality means any experience that is thought to bring the experience into contact with the divine, not just an experience that feels meaningful. And then two nurses, Murray and Zenter, write that the spiritual dimension tries to be in harmony with the universe and strives for answers about the infinite. It comes into focus when the person faces emotional stress and physical illness or death. And we'll see a lot of that common thread throughout. Reflective practices such as mindfulness can be a tool to discover how spirituality is manifested in our lives. It teaches us to be aware of the mind and the body connection. There's a growing number of evidence indicating that spiritual practices are associated with better health and well-being. So again, that connection, the spirit, the mind, the body. We can't isolate all those differences too easily. It's a combination of many different things that make up a human being. A spiritual community can improve your life. Spiritual fellowship, such as a church, a synagogue, or other community worship, a meditation group, or even strong relationships, can be a source of support, and increase in your well-being. Spiritual strength can help you to overcome hardships. Some people have overcome trauma, such as abuse, abduction, war, imprisonment, by seeking comfort and strength in their spiritual side. You may recall 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart. I don't know, some of you might remember her. It was in the news for such a long time. She was abducted, kidnapped from her home, from her family home, when she was only 14. Later on, she wrote about that ordeal, and she said, "There wasn't a single day that I didn't pray. It was the hardest time of my life, without a doubt. But at the same time, it was one of the most spiritual times of my life because I felt my Savior's presence so strongly." She related that her faith, her spiritual side, her belief system helped her to survive. In my favorite book, Man's Search for Meaning, author Viktor Frankl described how he survived the atrocities of Nazi concentration camps. Being stripped of everything, he felt that what remained was the last human freedom, the ability to choose one's attitude in any given circumstances. Through spirituality, he was able to meditate, to pray, and focus on his attitude, his belief system, his faith, his purpose and meaning, rather than the unspeakable circumstances of the camps. He taught other prisoners how to do this as well, and it helped many survive. He developed what he later identified as logotherapy, and it has very much to do with being able to choose your attitude no matter what your circumstances are. In addition, modern science shows that letting go of negative feelings or blaming is reflected in a number of spiritual traditions, including religions such as Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism. The benefits of forgiveness and gratitude are numerous. We can have better immune system functioning, a longer lifespan, lower blood pressure, improved cardiovascular health, and fewer feelings of anger or hurt. When I was a social worker working with hospice years ago, I learned that spirituality is a very important aspect of who we are as human beings. And I think we're hearing that from people who have related their experiences throughout the years and just even in the definitions. Our spiritual needs are as important as our physical needs, our psychosocial needs, our cultural needs, and our financial needs. When I presented my thesis, it was entitled "The Impact of Spirituality on the Coping Abilities of Individuals with a Life-Threatening Illness." It was an eye-opener, just meeting with clients and people who agreed to be in my study. When faced with difficult issues and life-threatening assaults, people often turn to their spiritual side. The clients who were part of the study in my thesis taught me about how to use the strength of spirituality to cope under very difficult circumstances. One significant finding was that these clients used their spirituality as a way of life, a daily walk. Turning to their spiritual side during a time of crisis was a natural choice, a natural progression. So that the way they described it was the fact that they had this daily walk of nurturing their spiritual side, if you will. It was there. It was easy to turn to that when they were in trouble, when they were facing death, when they were having pain, when they were suffering, when they were saying goodbye to loved ones. So it was just the natural choice for them to go to that spiritual side and get strength from there. That's how they described it. And I was privileged to be an observer during this very intimate time in their lives. I witnessed their journey and how they coped. Now, we may not be facing life-threatening illness or the trauma of abduction like Elizabeth Smart, or the atrocities of a concentration camp like Viktor Frankl. But we face daily challenges in our lives. If you haven't yet, and you live long enough, you will. We all have losses, whether it's loved ones, whether it's loss of the way our bodies function, physical strength, missing friends or what was familiar to us. And as a result of different losses and the adjustment of moving to, if you're in the villages, if you're in a retirement community here, it's different. It's different than where you grew up or where you raised your family. And inevitably, there are losses all around us. Those losses may result in grief, adjustment disorder, anxiety, or even depression. Caregivers, counselors, social workers, and therapists can all be helpful. And it's very important that they be mindful of all the aspects of a human being, of the client, if you will, or the person that they're caring for. And pay attention to the spirituality. What does that mean to the person? What are their beliefs? What's their belief system? Professionals would be more effective if they would be sensitive to issues of spirituality, what it means to the client. Is it a strength, or could it be? Could it be developed to be a strength for the client? I was always taught and learned as I worked throughout the years, meet the client where the client is. That still holds true. That holds true for all of us, whether we're developing friendships and learning about a friend or a neighbor or an acquaintance when we meet them. Where they are is where you start. So meet the client where the client is. How about if you're the caregiver for someone? You don't jump in trying to push your values, your thoughts, your beliefs onto them. You go to find out what are theirs. Where do they find strength? Explore their strengths, explore their coping skills. What has helped them to get through times in the past? Have they faced difficult times? If so, what did they turn to? What helped them out? I always do that when I meet with clients, when I'm doing that very initial assessment. And then again, maybe throughout our sessions, what is giving you strength? What are you turning to? That's working for you. It's not the same for everyone. So that's important. That's important as a good friend, as a shoulder to lean on, as well as for professionals. So nurturing our spiritual side can have benefits in many aspects of our lives. Our spirituality may help us to cope, and it may give us purpose. I'd like you to be thinking about issues that we've talked about throughout this, and I want to tell you personally what spirituality means to me and what it has meant to me. Personally, I find strength and comfort in my spirituality. For me, my spiritual side represents my personal relationship to God, with Jesus. He guides me. He walks with me during my daily life, and he is my hope for my future, for my everlasting life. Without this spiritual aspect in my life, my life would not be balanced. God is not only a part of my life, He is the center. So that's what it means to me in a nutshell. And that represents the end of our talk for today.